Okay, we got us a serious problem here, and this problem that I'm going to show you is probably a problem that a lot of people out there run into. I've been jacking with this car all day long, and it has led in one thing to another to another to another. Now what we're talking about painting. We're talking about when you paint over old paint, or possibly a different kind of paint than what you're painting on, and what happens is the paint blisters.
Welcome to D.I.Y. Automotive School with my friend Pete and Minnie, the body shop girl. It's everything you need to know about cars and more.
So what blistering is when you lay your paint down, and I'm going to go ahead and look at my Volkswagen here and kind of give you a little example of what we're talking about. You can see where the paint has peeled away, kind of blistered off, and just shaking itself off and loosened itself away from the car. You'll also see a spot up here where it looks like it's been scratched, but kind of look at that as a blister, like the paint reacted to, let's say, lacquer thinner, and then it kind of crinkled and peeled up and just flaked off. So when you run into a problem like this and you go ahead and you paint on top of paint that is not the same style of paint or the same, what can we say, kind, all right, let's say for instance this is acrylic enamel, this is urethane, reducers are different. So when you paint on top of that, what's going to happen, you're going to have a blister line right here where you sanded, where you break through the paint or whatever. And that's what's happened to our 1967 GTO. Now, I actually replaced 3/4 of this quarter panel. I went ahead and replaced the whole bottom section right in there of it. Okay, 1/4. I'm sorry, this is a 7.5 foot quarter panel we're looking at here. And then I found out that this car was wrecked at one time, and it had over 2.5 inches of Bondo in this area right here, so we had to do major construction. Well, when I started working on it, I realized that this is not base coat, clear coat paint. This is acrylic enamel or some type of single stage paint on this. And when I went to go ahead and paint it, the first thing that I did after I primed it, block sanded it, I went ahead and put a coat of epoxy sealer on the whole car. Now, when you do that, that should seal everything in. And 9 out of 10 times it usually works, unless you're really working with some hardcore, cheap, inexpensive paint and it doesn't work out properly, which happened here. So if we look in this area here, you can see where it started blistering. Now, this is actually a second fix. I'm going to tell you here in a second. But there were some blister marks right here in this area. So what I did, and also right here, okay, there were some blister marks in this area here as well. So what I did is I went ahead and I took some 2K primer and I spot primed that. And I let it dry for approximately 3 to 4 hours. I wet sanded it down to repaint it, and this is what happened. And you can see where the paint reacted with the old paint, the new paint, which is DBC PPG, DBC 9700 black with urethane reducer, medium reducer, and you can see where it's still blistering around the edges. Now, the only way to fix that properly is to reprime the whole quarter panel. Because if you don't reprime the whole quarter panel, what's going to happen is you're going to have these spots, just like this right here, come up, and when you clear coat it, that's basically what it's going to look like, just like that. So it's really became a nightmare of a job doing this, And this only happens very, very rarely, and you know, once in a blue moon. It just happens to be a full moon outside tonight. And once again, I've been working on this thing all day. It's actually about 7:30, 8 o'clock at night over here at SWRNC, because I have got to get this car out the door. So the only way to fix that, if your epoxy primer does not work, which is once again, once in a blue moon situation, is you have to go ahead and reprime the whole quarter panel or whatever you're painting. If you look right here, you can see that I've already got my primer in my cup mixed and ready to spray. Now the situation is you can't just use any primer. You have to use a high quality, high tech, very, very reputable 2K primer. And when I say 2K primer, that means that the primer actually has a hardener to activate it. It's an activated hardener. And another thing is you cannot add anything to that primer. You can only use the primer and the activator only. We really don't have any choice but to use the high quality primer with no reducer. Do you see what I'm saying? Now, I'm going to show you a can of a brand. This is the clear coat that somebody left over here when they painted something at my shop. I'm going to show you a brand not to buy. And if you look at that brand right there, you can see that it says Advantage. Advantage is a knockoff, inexpensive, cheap piece of shit fucking brand that you might want to use on your model airplane or possibly your little plastic model. If you're looking for a high quality paint job, stay away from Advantage products. The only thing that's worth a shit to buy from Advantage or any inexpensive brand such as this, and that includes 5-star as well. I'm sure people out there have heard of the brand 5-star. You want to stay away from that brand if you want a nice high quality job, because this primer right here was actually 5-star. One of the paint supplies stores that I get it from, they take a gallon and then they mix it in. They put it in quart cans and then sell it as a quart mixture. So 5-star is another cheap, inexpensive brand. Only good for small bullshit jobs such as a fender repair possibly, or maybe a bumper repair on a new car. Not something like what we're doing. But we were talking about Advantage, and the only thing that you should even purchase from Advantage, this brand right here, is possibly the reducer. Reducer's all the same. It doesn't matter. You got medium reducer, cold reducer, hot reducer, very hot reducer. It's all the same shit. Don't be fooled by someone saying, oh, it's the reducer that's doing it. Oh, the reducer's bad. It's not. Reducer is reducer no matter what brand you buy. So as far as buying cheap brand reducer, get the cheapest you can on that. But that's all you should do when it comes to cheap, inexpensive paint supplies. So now that we've had our situation and I've tried to fix it several times, once again, epoxy primer usually fixes the problem. Epoxy primer usually will solve your situation and it will be done and sealed and you won't have any more problems. Very rare that it doesn't. Very, very rare. So what we're going to do is I am going to go ahead and I have got to put 2 full wet coats of primer on that, and then tomorrow when I come back, because I'm going to have to let that dry overnight, I'm not going to be able to paint it tonight. It's going to have to dry overnight. When I come back tomorrow, we will go ahead and paint the black, hopefully. If this was a base coat, clear coat job instead of a single stage urethane or enamel or whatever it is, I wouldn't have had any problems. We'd be done down the road and it would be painted. But being a mystery brand paint, a single stage paint, painted God only knows when, it could have been painted 15, 20 years ago, I don't know. All right. It could be painted with cheap paint. It could be painted with high-tech, you know, urethane single stage. I don't know. But from that situation, it has led in to I have to prime the whole fucking quarter panel instead of spot prime the damage, because that's what I did. I just primed the area where the bodywork was and then block sanded it, and we started getting blisters. So the last and final stage on fixing any blistered area is this right here. I'm gonna go ahead and get it primed. When we come back tomorrow, hopefully I'll have this bitch painted and done, and we'll take a good look at it, and I'm gonna show you what the deal is. It's not a good deal. It's a bad deal. It's a deal that says, you know what? I need to find the roundhouse so I don't get cornered in by the square. Or should I say, I need to find the square house so the round doesn't come in and bite me. Either way, we're not getting a square deal, and it's turning out to be a fucking round. So now you can see that the panel has been completely primed, and I will have to block sand that out using 400. I'll have to wet sand that with 400, and more than likely I will have to pull all this tape and all this paper off and retape it due to the fact that we got a very high build all the way around this tape. And that is not good. While I was putting the first coat of primer on, I want to let everybody know this, because a lot of people tape their cars off with plastic only, and I don't do that. As you see, I outline everything with paper, and then I put the plastic behind the paper. And the reason I do that is because if you look right here, you can see where I added this piece of paper to it. The reason I added this piece of paper is because this plastic was wrapped around here and then it was taped under there real tight, so I can paint that section down there, all right, to get it all squared up where I wanted to end the paint job. And I was spraying the primer, and I'm sure you've already guessed what happened, is that all the paint that was built up on the plastic in this corner flaked off like that and went all over the primer job, all the way from there all the way up to here. Here's a piece that's still under there. You can see that right there. That's actually a piece that flaked off. So yeah, everybody out there that wants to tape their cars off with plastic and they don't want to use paper, good luck. Good fucking luck. Sometimes it's good to do that. Most of the time it's not. So I'm just letting you know. The next thing we got to do is we got to wet sand this down, and we got to make sure that it does not burn through. And when I say burn through, when I sand this, it's got to be a very, very quick, light sand job, because if I break through the primer, hold on, what's that right there? That's paint that actually blew off up here. You see what I'm saying? It got in there. Wow. But when I block that out, I got to be very quick with it. I got to be smooth, and I got to make sure that it all flows out. The reason for that is because if I bust through this primer, then I'll have to spot prime it, because that's where you get your blistering, is when you break through the primer into the old paint and you don't cover it back up. It will blister around those areas. So I got two full wet coats of Matrix MP3 primer, 7.5 foot quarter panel here. This motherfucker is 7.5 feet long. Very, very big job. Make sure that you check out all the videos on replacing that quarter panel and how to block out your Bondo to prime. And when I say to prime, make paint ready. You will not believe the bodywork that I had to do to this to get it squared up and straight. So wish me luck, because tomorrow morning is going to be the final fucking telltale on this situation. What a fucking bitch. A real fucking bitch. So now the situation is that we got our 2 coats of high quality primer on the vehicle. Now what we got to do is we got to block sand that down. Now if you remember right, I told you that you can actually convert your 2K primer into epoxy primer, which would be a sealer. That's the advantage of using 2K primer, which is an activator primer. Once again, it's not a lacquer style primer, and it actually uses a hardener to make the primer work. Now, the thing about primer is back in the old days, I'm going to say the old days because I'm getting up there in age and starting to be an old bastard myself, is when I started they had lacquer primer. Now there was a primer that PPG made, it was called Condor primer. And what that primer was, it was a filler primer, but it was still lacquer primer. And it was basically the start of the era of filler primer because it was a very, very high, thick content primer, but it still used lacquer, lacquer thinner to thin the primer down. It didn't have any hardeners in it. You just mix the lacquer in it and then you paint it. But within 2 to 3 years after using it, the stuff would shrink down so bad that you would see your bodywork in it, you would see deep scratches if you didn't wet sand it properly before you primed it, because back in the day, 80 grit scratches didn't cut it. You had to literally sand the Bondo and your old paint down to at least 180, 320 before you primed it, because if you didn't, the primer would shrink down and then you would have all the scratches that would show. Kind of basically on this car, when this car was brought in, you can see the bodywork in the paint job because the primer that was used on this originally was probably lacquer primer, and it shrunk down so you can see the bodywork. I didn't realize though that the bodywork was that bad until I actually got into it. You need to go watch the videos on this car and see the nightmare that this quarter panel was. This quarter panel should have been replaced. That's how badly wrecked this thing was when it came to my shop. But the person that did the bodywork to it, he did such a good job that he straightened it all out. I wouldn't really say straightened it out. He hammered and dollied it and bondoed it up so good that you couldn't even tell. Once I pulled the Bondo out, there was almost 2.5 inches thick of Bondo on this, so did he really fucking hammer and dolly it out, or did I do that? I got it down to about 1/8 of an inch of Bondo, and then of course I replaced this bottom part of the panel itself. But let's get back on with the story. If you want to look at those videos, go back into my video sets and see what it takes to replace this lower section here, right here on D.I.Y. Auto School, YouTube channel D.I.Y. Auto School. And then I also got another video set explaining how to block sand your primer, how to block sand your Bondo to put into primer. So those are 2 very, very important videos that you should watch if you plan on doing a major restoration job to a car like this. And what we have to do now is we have to take our 400 with a block and we got to block this out. Now, if you look close to that panel, you can see that I went ahead and added a light guide coat. The reason that I did that is because in this situation I want to make sure that I sand the whole panel. So this guide coat is not here for scratches or bodywork. This guide coat is here to let me know that I did my job and sanded the whole thing before I paint it, because I don't want any dry spots in it. I want it to be a nice high gloss finish just like the vehicle itself is. So we're going to take our water, and since this is all taped and ready for paint, we're going to use minimal water on this, and we're just going to give it a light sand job just to get rid of the imperfections and to smooth everything up. Now, the trick on doing this is not sanding through the primer. It's very important that you do not sand through the primer. If you sand through the primer and bust through that primer, you're going to have to spot prime it again. Anywhere that you bust through the primer on these sharp edges or anywhere, you're going to have to reprime that area or it's going to blister in that area. So Be very careful, and that's why I'm telling you to do a light sand job. Just get rid of the imperfections, smooth it down, and be done with it. Stay away from the edges of your car, the sharp edges. I'm sanding this very quickly, and I'm getting rid of the imperfections that are in it. And I am using my fingers as a guide to stay away from the edges, okay? My thumb is down here, my fingers are up here. All right, I'll come back and lightly sand those corners after I block it all out. Another thing, it's very important to have a nice bucket of water, clean water, and keep your sandpaper clean. What I do is I take my sponge and clean my sandpaper off as I'm going. And what that does, that takes the mud from sanding off of the sandpaper, because we're using light water. We're not using a lot of water on this. And you can tell, when you sand that, you can tell when you're pretty much done sanding. Listen real close down here. Okay, right here where it's dry. Do you hear that? Now as we get up in here where we've already sanded it, you see, all right, now it's starting to sound smoother and you aren't hearing a lot of rough scratching noises. So that's another way to tell that you've sanded it properly. And there you go. We got it painted. It's a done deal. And all we got to do now is color sand and buff that baby in a couple days. And it looks like the paint and everything matched. I don't see any discoloration. I see a lot of dust on this paint, but as far as the quarter panel goes that we had to repaint and we had problems with it, now you know how to take care of the problem and fix it right. This is Pete, my friend Pete, your friend Pete. Taking on a big giant job, not making a lot of money doing it, making people happy, and hopefully having the satisfaction that says, I did that job when it's rolling down the highway and people look at it. Because that's the main thing here, is having quality in your work, having pride to do the quality job that you're doing, to have the patience to finish the job the right way instead of slop it all together. This was a major, major job. I know you only seen the part where we messed up and I showed you how to fix it in case it starts blistering and you have problems after problems after problems. But when you're working on a car or anything that you're working on, it doesn't matter if it's a car, it could be washing the dishes. You should take pride in everything you do, because one of these days you're going to see that car again, or you might see those dirty dishes in that sink and you'll say to yourself, you know what? I'm proud of the way I wash my dishes because my dishes are clean. This is Pete, my friend Pete, your friend Pete. Finishing out this job, getting it down the road, and hopefully starting back on this beast right here and getting it down the road. 69 Mustang Mach 1. Got all the jams painted, everything's bolted back together permanently. Got a few dents we got to fix in it from previous employees and mistakes that happened throughout the build job. There's one here. We had an employee drop the deck lid and didn't tell me about it, so I have to fix that. Fell right on that corner. And we also had a door slip off a floor jack over here. Got some dents right there we got to fix. Once that's done, this beast will be ready for paint, ready for wet sanding, ready for taping off, and hopefully we're not going to have any blisters along the way. We'll see you later. Take it easy. And always remember, a little bit of extra time goes a long fucking way when you have pride in what you do. Take it easy.
D.I.Y. Automotive School. Classes don't stop till you know everything.